Good morning, everybody. First, I just want to find out how each of you wants me to address you. Is Miss Robinson, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. And Mr. Biggs, is that what you would prefer for me to
You
address
can
you?
just call me Cecil.
Cecil. Excellent. So, first off, I applaud both of you for being willing to entertain the process of mediation and seeing if we can come to some resolution. I've been an attorney in Washington, D.C. and Maryland since 1999, and I've handled a lot of mediations. I have been an attorney on both sides, so I've sat with a client in both of your shoes. Mediation is a process that I firmly believe in and I think works if given a chance. It's a voluntary process. Nobody has forced either one of you to be here. So, again, I applaud both of you for willing to entertain this process and see if we can find some common ground to move forward through what's taken place. It is a confidential process. That means if we don't reach a resolution or a solution today, and Miss Robinson ultimately decides that she wants to pursue a legal remedy, I cannot be subpoenaed. So what we say here today is, again, confidential. One of the tools that we'll use is a breakout room or a caucus room. It's called both, where I'll ask one of you to join me in a private room so we can talk a little bit more open. I will not share with the other person what we discuss in that room unless the person sharing those facts or sharing those pieces of information want me to share that. Everything said in that room between myself and the person in the breakout room is confidential. So, mediation works when we're focusing on the facts of the situation. I'm not here to act as a judge. I'm not here to talk about the law and talk about exactly what your chances would be if you went to trial. That's for an attorney to do, or that's for a judge to do. That's not my role. Everybody here is doing so voluntarily, and I ask that everybody try and keep their emotions as much under control as they can in this situation. These types of situations are charged emotionally, and so it may work where one of the parties or both of the parties share what they believe happened so that everybody hears together. Or if I find that that's not going to serve our best purposes, I may ask you about the facts in the breakout room. Does everybody understand so far what the expectations of today will be?
Yes. And I like to change. You can call me Sean. You don't
Sean?
need to call.
Okay. Sean, great. Have either of you ever sat through a mediation or been a party to a mediation before?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And
No.
Seth, no. Okay. So it may have been a different process. Mediators differ in their approaches, but again, the purpose of today is to ensure that everybody is heard and that this is a safe space. We're not going to tolerate any type of name calling or any type of emotional outbursts that will unnecessarily cause the process not to work. So, is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Sean, have you had any type of discussions with Cecil since this incident happened?
Um, yes, it's been kind of awkward. I still have my job there, so of course there's that. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Do you want to, and do you feel comfortable sharing in front of Cecil and myself all together what happened that brings us here today?
Um, yes, as you can imagine, it's a little emotional, or not a little, but it is emotional for me. So I've taken notes just to help myself stay on track and not forget anything. Essentially, I am the VP for public relations for the West Coast Rangers. which is the professional male sports team. I worked in the PR department for about 18 years, and I started really at the entry level, and I moved through three levels of promotions, really, which Cecil helped me with, until 3 years ago when I was made the PR VP, reporting to the team president, who is Cecil. I really used to love my job until an incident after last year's championship season. Um, the team won the season, and it required more of my team in public relations, but I really thrived in that and did a great job during the stressful time. Even Cecil said that. We had various postseason celebrations, including a West Coast Rangers Day, complete with a players' parade to City Hall and presentation of the keys to the city by the mayor. Um, Cecil was there, of course. And I was by his side for most of the event. And we used a limo. Um, and so essentially, we parked our personal cars at a parking lot and used a limo to like outside of the city, and then use the limo to get to the events for the team. After everything was over for the day and we got into the limo, it was me, Cecil, and the other VPs. Um, he boisterously thanked me and the other VPs for a great season and for organizing a great celebration. Then he reached over and grabbed my crotch and held it for what seemed like forever, but I guess maybe would have been about 20 seconds, and stated, "I have wanted to do that for years." Everyone in the car saw it. I was shocked, and so was everyone else in the car. And for the remainder of the trip, which was about 15 minutes, we were all silent. When I got to my car, the humiliation really set in, and my failure to even do anything or say anything really sunk in. So that really was worse. This incident has really consumed me. I had an attorney, but I no longer do. I was violated by Cecil by this incident. And before this incident, it seemed like he respected me and advocated for me as a professional. And that's what makes it even more crushing to me. So I think that's all I'll say for right now.
Okay. Sean, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it was not easy. Again, thank you for being willing to be part of this process. Um, so, Cecil, I think it would be best if we speak in separate caucus, unless there's something factually that you think you might want to share now. I think it might be probably more productive if we speak in private. Uh, and then, if later it would be helpful for you to speak and address Sean directly, we can certainly do that. So have there been any?
Well, excuse me.
Sure.
So I think as a matter of fairness, this is a mediation. We're not in a court of law. We're here as a matter of goodwill, both parties. I would like to speak. I'm not here to contest facts in
Okay.
this, but I would like to speak.
Sure.
I have the utmost respect for Sean. I think this incident aside, Sean knows, and my behavior over 18 years has testified to the fact that I have regarded her highly. As she correctly put it herself, I have been instrumental in getting her promotions. Of course, she was very hardworking and very talented and got there on merit, but I pushed for her, and she knows that, and I supported her. Um, I am honestly beside myself about what happened and here. There's no excuse for it. So I'm not here to make excuses other than to say it was a momentary lapse in judgment caused by by alcohol. It's always the alcohol. But I've never done this sort of thing before. And I would just ask Sean to take into account to put this single lapse in judgment in the context of the 18 years of behavior and relationship that she's seen from me. I will, for now, leave it at that, just to say that I ask for grace for her to give me some grace in this matter, given, as I say, that this is entirely out of character. I have not behaved this way towards anyone. I don't have any, nobody's ever complained about my behavior. As I say, I myself am sort of beside myself. And let's just leave it at that for now.
Cecil, I appreciate you acknowledging what has taken place and speaking directly to Sean. Oftentimes in mediations, if a party is willing to acknowledge, if there is something to acknowledge factually to the other party, it is helpful to get that out. So I appreciate that speaking up for yourself and wanting to share. Have you said that to Sean before today? Have you made any type of acknowledgement or spoken with her previously?
Frankly, no, I did not. I realized that the situation that was created was an awkward one, and I didn't want to put her, make her feel cornered in any way or make things awkward for her. And given that she had decided to go ahead and file a complaint, I thought it best to do this in the context of the mediation. Honestly, it's why I'm here in mediation, is because it's a forum in which we can speak more openly and flesh out where we're each coming from.
Okay.
So intentions matter a lot.
Okay. Sean, have you sought an acknowledgement from Cecil previously to today's mediation, or have you spoken with anybody to talk about getting any type of an acknowledgement?
Um, I don't feel like I need an acknowledgement because I know what happened
Okay.
and I know how it made me feel. As I said, there were witnesses there, which made it even more humiliating. And the situation, the relationship between us has been very awkward. I'm at a high level in the organization, which, as Cecil acknowledged, it took me time and hard work to get there. But I don't know what to say. Like, you know, I feel like he's kind of blaming it on the alcohol, which sometimes alcohol makes you do things that you really wanted to do, especially for him to state that he's wanted to do that for years. It just,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. Okay. I think at this time, what I'd like to do is set up a caucus room with Sean and get to listen to her a little bit more about what she's looking for through this process of mediation. So it may take a little while, Cecil. So I ask you for your patience. If you need me in the interim, message check. So at this point, if we can get a breakout room set up for Sean and myself, that'd be great. Okay. Okay, Sean. So I appreciate everything that you've said thus far. And again, I imagine that this is easy for you. And I cannot imagine that this has been easy for you, seeing that you've been with the organization for 18 years and you've heard that, you have been a respected member of the organization. So for this to have happened, it's been acknowledged that it happened. It's uncomfortable, no doubt. So let me ask you a couple of questions so that I can get a better sense in terms of where you're at with what you want to achieve and what you're looking for. I know this is the first time that you've had any discussions with Cecil or with a mediator. You did file a complaint. What what are you looking for through this process? And
Um, I would say, I mean, it's not lost on me that it has taken a long time for me to progress in my field, and that I'm of a certain age in which um it may be more difficult for me to find the work and at the level that I'm looking for. um but also I think it's going to be difficult for me to remain in the job, working so closely with Cecil. Fear, anxiety about something similar happening again, not necessarily wanting to be alone with him at any given time, which, as I stated earlier, for a lot of these events, I was with him, most of the day. But I just, I've been doing my work, but I've been staying away, um, arm's length. So, I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like I need to leave the team employment. And, I don't know what that means for me outside of the team, but, maybe I'll take an early retirement. But for that, the additional years that I could have worked, I feel like I should be compensated. And so, with that said, I'm thinking that $1.2 million for me to leave and roll over into a retirement or something like that is what I'll need as I continue to figure out my next chapter.
okay. And how old are you?
Oh, um, why do you ask that?
I'm just trying to figure out how many more years you might have worked with the team or you might have in terms of progressing in your career.
I'm 50.
Okay. And does the team have an early retirement process?
Um, I don't know. I mean, you know, things are different now with the circumstances. Cecil is the face of the team, and I, he really needs to address what he did, and it's not sufficient to say that it was caused by alcohol. So whatever might be the norm is kind of out the window because it wasn't the norm for, my supervisor to grab my crotch,
Sure.
so he
No,
needs to think
absolutely.
outside the box.
Is Cecil your direct supervisor?
Yes.
Okay. And are there other women at the team in the organization?
Yeah, at different levels. I'm probably the highest level.
Okay. Has anything like this happened before?
Um, no, really. I'm PR, but that probably would be something more for human resources.
Okay. You're not aware of anything like this happening before?
No.
Okay. Okay. Um, and what's your current salary?
My current salary is $300,000 a year.
Okay. Any bonuses, any other benefits?
Could be, yes.
Okay. Could be in terms of bonuses. Have you obtained bonuses in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And just generally, what do those range in?
I mean, it just depends. Like this was a successful season, so it might be something like about 3% of my salary.
Okay. And do you receive health care?
Yes.
Okay. Paid time off?
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So how did you arrive at the 1.2 million?
I mean, I think it's fair considering that I'm high salary. I don't know. A lot of times people like or organizations like to promote within. So if I go to a new organization, I'm going to have to work my way up again. I don't know if they're going to give me the opportunity to do that. So I think it's generous actually, for me to arrive at that number because that's only about 4 years of my salary.
Okay. there anything else that might satisfy you in terms of a resolution here? I mean, you said
Um,
you don't want to stay on. You're
correct.
looking for financial uh, compensation.
Hmm.
Are you looking for anything else?
Yes, when I'm in the job market, I would like for the team to give me good references, recommendations. Do not say anything negative about me. I mean, my behavior does not warrant that anyway, but I just want to make sure um, that they give me that courtesy of that.
Okay. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that confidentiality is also something that would be important to you.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And let me just look at my notes because, just
Sure.
with this situation being so emotional, I don't want to forget anything.
No,
Um,
absolutely. Take your time.
okay, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think 1.2 is pretty fair.
Okay. Are you aware whether or not the team has a sexual harassment policy in place?
Um, yeah, we have to go through training every year for it.
Okay.
But this is,
Okay.
I would say, I mean, wouldn't you say this is pretty common sense? You shouldn't grab people's crotch or grab people anyway. Like without the policy, he should know not to do that.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that he acknowledged that it was wrong and he shouldn't have done that. It doesn't make you whole for what you're looking for.
Hmm.
But I do hope that that gave some indication of his willingness to try and work something out today as well. So,
Well,
okay,
I do, but I hate that he tried to blame it on the alcohol.
sure. Do you know whether or not he has a problem with alcohol? Has that ever been addressed or to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Is okay. Well, I appreciate your sharing everything with me, Sean. Is there anything that you would not like me to share with Cecil or that is to remain between us?
I would say, I mean, obviously he would have to know the amount I'm asking, but perhaps you could put it out there inquire about what he's willing to give before you throw out my number.
Sure. Okay. I'll feel him out and see where his head's at in terms of what he thinks would be reasonable to do. In all my years of mediating cases and being involved in mediations, parties have expectations coming in. Generally, what I tell people is the mark of a mediation that is successful is that one side thinks they've accepted too little, the other side thinks they've given too much. In these situations, it's very emotional. And so, we need to keep in perspective what we're trying to achieve here and try and remove emotions as much as possible if we want to achieve a resolution and allow you to move through what happened one way or the other. So I'm going to do the same thing with Cecil now. I'm going to invite him into a breakout room. I appreciate you sharing with me what you shared. And if you have any questions or need anything during the time of my being with Cecil, please just shoot me a message via chat or text message. I think we've exchanged cell phone numbers prior to today. So
All
I'd
right.
ask if I can have a breakout session set up with Cecil.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Cecil. Thank you for your patience. Um, I was just talking with Sean about a little bit more with respect to uh, what she is looking for and her thoughts. She's here in good faith. she would like to try and move through things. She did share with me though that she is looking for some type of remuneration. But with that said, you know, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about some of the facts and see where you're at in terms of your thoughts on today. I think you shared with me that, or you shared with all of us that you would like Sean to stay with the organization.
We didn't talk about it, but I'm happy to have her stay.
Okay. I must have written that down wrong. I'd heard something to the effect that no. Okay. Okay.
It didn't come up. I mean, it hasn't
Got
come
it.
up one way or the other, at least in these conversations that we've been having.
Okay. Okay. So have there I know that there haven't been any discussions between yourself and Sean um in terms of where to go at this point. Um Let me share that Sean does want to leave the organization, does not feel that staying would be something that she could do emotionally. And so I wanted to let you know that up front. Um, she shared with me her current salary, the structure of bonuses that she receives, and the benefits that she receives as well. And obviously, she's been there for 18 years and has worked her way up in the organization. So, I guess what she wanted to bring back to you in this session was that she wants the team to compensate her for her leaving. She intended to stay with the team, is what she shared with me, and for her career. So, there's a number of years that she's obviously losing with the team by leaving. So she wanted to ask what, if anything, the team was prepared to do financially.
Can I ask what she's asking for?
So she asked me not to share that with you at this point. And oftentimes the person will give a dollar amount and have that shared. I realize that puts this in a little bit more of a difficult light, but I'm respecting what she asked me to do in terms of not sharing that number with you. Um, can you confirm her salary was $300,000 a year?
I believe that's right. I would need to double check with, but
Okay.
that sounds about right. Yeah, I
Okay. Got it.
think somewhere between 250 and 300.
Okay. Okay. So knowing that she doesn't want to stay at the team, um, something else she was looking for is a good reference, nothing negative, non-disparagement, and confidentiality. If we are able to achieve a resolution and be able to satisfy both sides here, we would write this up in an agreement that would be legally binding. And so these terms would be included. But I just wanted to mention that those are some other things that she's asking for as well. So good reference, recommendations, confidentiality, non-disparagement. So um, coming into today, did you have any idea in terms of what the team wanted to do at this point uh, going forward?
You mean what we're willing to do?
What you're willing to do, what you're interested in doing. Um, did did you have any idea about what the team would have to do, or you would have to do, or be willing to do in order to reach a resolution?
So look, as I said before, and the team feels this way too, Sean really was an asset to the organization. Honestly, uh, I admired, respected, and just loved Sean as a friend. We became friends because we worked very closely over 18 years. So um, first, let me say I'm sorry that she's decided that she can no longer continue to work. But however, I do understand it. Although frankly, I really wish that she could have seen it in the light of, you know, one small misstep. We all make mistakes, and I know this was a really, really unfortunate one. I am embarrassed and honestly wish I could turn the clock back. But anyway, sorry that she can no longer work. And yes, of course, uh, we will be happy to offer a fair compensation. Um, so Sean did have a number of working years left with us. And so here's what honestly I think would be the fair thing that we're willing to do is to look at the number of years that she would have had left with us and agree to pay her the uh her salary. She's hit a ceiling here, so this would be her salary going forward. Um, Pay her the salary for that number of years. Now, she's asked for a reference. I'm happy to give her a reference, but in terms of fairness, I think double dipping is a problem here. So if she's getting, X amount of dollars from us and then goes because I give her an excellent reference and gets the same amount somewhere else, she's now making double the amount. So uh, perhaps we could agree that we would pay her her current salary. She's welcome to go look for something else. I will give her a stellar reference. And yes, happy to provide a confidentiality statement. Honestly, uh, uh, we want to preserve the reputation and brand of the team, and so we don't want this to get out either. And we definitely don't want this thing to go to trial. That's between you and me, those
Sure.
two things. So we want to do whatever it takes to settle this out of court before it becomes public, because it would be unfair to besmirch the reputation of the team because of this, as I say, lapse in judgment, this momentary few seconds lapse in judgment. Um, so going back to we could pay her, but if she gets another job, then at that point our obligation would end. So as I say, no double dipping. I mean, we can we can help her along until she finds another job. Um, However, if she doesn't, we'll continue paying her until her retirement, right? But I think it's unfair to ask that we pay her and then she gets another comparable job uh, and then ends up making twice as much money. So
Okay.
that's something that I think I feel hopeful and confident that we can resolve this in the course of this mediation. I
Okay.
think those are, yeah, go ahead.
Um, so in terms and there's the beauty of mediation is that if the parties are willing to look towards resolving the matter, there's a number of ways that we can do it, and we can be very creative here in terms of trying to structure something that ultimately satisfies all sides. I certainly understand what you're saying in terms of double dipping or in terms of collecting a salary for X number of years and then having another job. Obviously, for Sean to be willing to accept any type of a financial resolution, she's going to have to agree that it's fair and reasonable under whatever terms that we achieve, vice versa. As I say to everybody, and I usually say this up front, but in a mediation, the mark of a successful mediation is that one side thinks that they've accepted too little, the other side thinks that they've accepted too much. That oftentimes happens. Here, though, I'm really pleased and I see good progress moving forward with with the team being willing to look at a compensation structure based upon number of years, and structure it in such a way that the team will provide her with a stellar reference so that she can further her career, but understanding that if that happens, that there has to be some reasonable measure where she's not being paid by the team and being paid by another organization. So I can explain that to her. Is that something that I'm free to share with her?
Yes, that definitely you are welcome to share with her.
Okay.
And I hope that again, I really would like, given that um, Sean has decided to leave, and I completely honor her. I would like you to convey to her that I really hope and would like to leave on good terms. It's a personal thing for me to, as I say, this is a friendship, an 18-year friendship, and I understand that she doesn't want to work alongside me anymore, and would not want to socialize. But I hope that we can part without hard feelings. That would mean a lot to me.
Okay. What does that look like to you?
That looks like emotion, which you wanted to keep out of the mediation.
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, we can't guarantee that
No, I
hard
understand. There's
feelings,
no
but
guarantee. There's no agreement that's going to.
yeah,
It's a sharing of intentions.
sure.
It's nothing that can be encapsulated in words and put on a piece of paper and have people sign and then have it be enforced. And that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
It's an intangible.
Understandable. How many years of compensation would the team be willing to provide? And
Well, look. We have to. I'd have to check what the usual. At what age would somebody in Sean's capacity normally be retiring from our organization? We have a long history, so that would be her retirement age. So that age minus her current age, I don't know exactly what age she is. So those are facts that can be ascertained, and then we can take that, and those would be the number of years. And that's, look, the other thing is, again, I think it's important that you share this with Sean. So we're making a big assumption here that A, she wouldn't have left for any other reason during these years, or wouldn't have been fired for cause for any reason. I mean, we're just assuming that everything would be sailing along, which none of us know because we don't have a crystal ball. So, but we're willing in good faith to make that assumption. Um,
okay.
Again, just to be clear.
So in terms of sharing that with Sean, I guess obviously there's the assumption that she wouldn't be terminated. Had there been any disciplinary issues with Sean over the past 18 years?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but
Um,
things happen. I mean, I didn't do anything, and there was a few second lapse, and here we are. So, I mean, you never know in life what's going to come up.
sure. With that said, I think that it would be best if I don't talk to her about whether she'd be fired or not for cause. I want to make sure that that type of potential emotion stays out of things. I understand what you're saying, and you don't ever know if something would happen in the future. But yeah, let's try and move through here. So, are you able to provide a number if you made a couple calls right now? Just so I have something to go back to Sean about. What I can do is I can return to Sean in a breakout room. I can tell her what the team is thinking and that you're making a call or two to try and find out what the number might be based upon her age and based upon how many years she has remaining. 'Cause I'd like to have that in front of her so that she can look at it as well. Is that possible?
I don't need to make a call.
Okay.
We all know what Sean's current salary is. I mean, she's got tax statements and it's completely verifiable. She should know how much she's earning. I'm not going beyond 300,000,
In terms of her
which
annual earnings.
her annual earnings, yes.
Okay. Okay. So 300,000 for a period of she's 50 years old now. Let's say she works till the age of 65. When do people generally retire from the team?
That is a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know that my people are available to answer that question today. But let's
Okay.
go ahead and assume it's 65. That sounds
Okay.
like a reasonable.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Let me go back to Sean and talk to her and see where we can get.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry to keep you waiting. Things are moving and progressing well. So I did not share a number with Cecil in terms of what you're looking for. Um, you know, Cecil did share that he's sorry to hear that you want to leave the organization, but he understands given the circumstances. Um, again, he wanted you to know that you have been valuable to the organization. Um, and so, you know, for whatever that's worth at this point. So in order to try and move things along here, I did tell them that you're looking for monetary compensation. I did tell them that you're looking for a positive reference, non-disparagement, and confidentiality. They're on board with all of that. They're on board providing you as Cecil said, a stellar recommendation, and obviously confidentiality through an agreement. Uh, they are willing to compensate you at your current salary for as long as you are not employed with the team, and up to the age of 65, which we're assuming would have been your age of retirement. Whether that's true or not, that's just what we're going to use for the purposes of this mediation because we have to have some definitive numbers on the table. It can't be open-ended. Do you understand where they're coming from?
So they're willing to pay me for 15 years.
Well, so that's what Cecil said, that they would be willing to pay you at your current salary. You're 50 years old now, until the age of 65. With that said, they do want to provide you with a positive recommendation. So if you do obtain another job, then there would be something within the structure of the settlement agreement whereby that if you are employed elsewhere, that compensation from the team would end.
So are they saying I have to actively look for another job?
So they didn't state that, but I get that that is something that they are actively going to want. Yes. But I will confirm that with them. I assume that through my discussions with Cecil. Their their concern is that you just take this as an open paycheck and just take it until you're 65 without actively seeking other employment. So essentially, it would be you decide to resign. Uh, they provide you with positive recommendation, confidentiality, non-disparagement in both directions, and they agree to compensate you at your current salary, uh, and with the assumption, and again, I will confirm this, that you are actively seeking new employment, and that if you do obtain new employment, that payment of the $300,000 a year would then cease.
What about if I started a business instead of actively seeking out other employment?
Is that something you want me to mention to them and discuss?
I mean, if I accept that they're willing to pay me for my salary for 15 years, I want to know what is not allowed. So, like, instead of seeking active employment, I might decide to just open a business and with the money that I'm getting from them. And so I just want to make sure, I just want all of the requirements spelled out.
Sure. I mean, I can certainly discuss that with them based upon my discussions with Cecil thus far. My guess is that they will want to put some parameters around that in terms of compensation. So, um, is that something you want me to discuss with them?
Yes, I
Okay.
would want you to discuss that.
Okay. I think we can
And
have a quick discussion on that. Sure.
okay. Did
Um,
you say something else?
no, so, one of the things that I don't know, it can't be encapsulated in an agreement, is that Cecil it expressed to me that, you know, he feels badly about what happened, and he wanted to mention that, emotionally, he hopes that after all is said and done, that you can leave on good terms. That's something that is outside of my purview as a mediator to put in an agreement, but just something that I'd ask you to hear from him, and we can go from there. So, um,
I mean, I kind of don't want to address with him anymore about that. I just
fair.
it's fine. I
Okay.
mean, it's not fine, but I mean, this is beyond me, but he probably needs to get some type of help if alcohol makes him act in that manner. But
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
and yeah. Okay.
Okay. I told him I would let you know that. So let me have a quick conversation with Cecil and see what he says, see what the team's thoughts are on what you just raised in terms of business and parameters. So just bear with me for a quick minute.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, Cecil. Had a quick conversation with Sean. I think we're making good progress. I advised her that what the team is willing to do in terms of pay her salary, assuming that her retirement age would be 65. She also asked, which I assumed, that she would be actively searching for other employment. Is that something that would be a stipulation from the team's side, meaning that she's not just going to accept $300,000 and do nothing for the next 15 years?
Um, as I said, the key thing, so what is her thought if I'm happy for her to, we're happy for her to look for alternative employment. Um, Once she gets that employment, however, I, we're not going to continue. There's going to have to be a set off, right? There's just, okay. So as long as that's understood, um, if she's willing to accept a stipulation that she looks for employment under those conditions, absolutely, sure.
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking a set-off, or are we talking about the payments from the organization stopping? So let's say 2 years down the road from now, she finally finds employment. The organization has agreed to pay 2 years worth of salary. And after that point, the, is it that, do you want the payments to stop? Is that what you would seek?
Ideally, yes. Um, Ideally, yes.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm clear in terms of what will be written up in an agreement. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Look, I'm trying to be fair to to Sean. If she gets a job and she's being paid $20,000, then we'll do a set off. But if she basically has a comparable position to what she's had, I don't know what kind of job she's going to be looking for.
Okay.
Uh, so,
So,
it's a fairness question and doing what's reasonable.
sure. I mean, some of these things obviously can be put into an agreement. Some of these things are a little bit more, fuzzy, so to speak, in terms of
Yeah,
what job she's looking for. But
yeah.
let me just clarify that, though.
I think it's cleanest to say that we'll pay her until she finds a comparable job. How's that?
Okay. And if she finds a job making less money, is the team going to continue?
Well,
Or
I forget that. Don't say anything to her about that.
okay,
Hmm.
okay, fair enough. Okay, I
Yeah,
just want to
as
make
you
sure.
say, it gets messy.
Yeah, fair enough. She did ask about in the instance where she decides to start her own business. Um, what happens at that point? If she starts her own business, the team has been paying her salary, and let's say a year or two down the road, she starts her own business and isn't earning anything. What would your response be to that? Um, she didn't say one way or the other, and I didn't probe this yet, whether or not she would be expecting the team to continue to pay her at that point, or whether or not the team would stop compensation. Um,
I
again,
think that if she starts her own business, first of all, we would stop compensation because it's a way of earning money. So it's
yep.
a job.
Okay.
Secondly, you raise a good point. If she starts a business, then we would want some kind of non-compete clause that she don't poach. She doesn't do anything that would mess with our business.
Sure. Okay. And that's fair. Okay. I think that's fair and reasonable. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't discussed that the team may be be interested in ensuring is in a resolution?
No, and we are agreed on the confidentiality thing, right? That she
Yes.
had asked for that. Okay.
Yes. Confidentiality, non-disparagement, and a
Okay.
positive reference. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let me go talk to her real quick. I think we're close. I think we can wrap in a minute.
You have a bonus of 1 minute.
Okay, I think we can do it. Sean, thank you for your patience. I think we're very close. So I clarified that there would be an expectation within the agreement that you are actively seeking employment. And then they would pay your salary of $300,000 until you find employment. Um, and when you find employment, then payment would stop. I asked about the business as well, and they take the same position on you starting a business. It would be a way to earn compensation. And at that point, if you start your own business, then their payments would stop. So, do you understand what they're saying?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Would they require proof that I'm applying for a job? Like, I'm trying to figure out exactly how much information I need to provide them. And what if I find a job that's 150,000? Well, then I'm out 150,000. So all
Sure.
of those things matter.
They would
I mean,
not be willing to, if you find a job that's less money, they would not be willing to make up the difference. So
okay.
that is one thing that will be stipulated in settlement agreement. So just so you're aware of that. Um,
Yeah, I
in
don't think I can really. There has to be a minimum amount of time that I get a certain amount of money from them, is what I feel. Because they have really just ruined my career trajectory. And yeah, so if I get a job making less, then they, gotten over in a sense.
mhm. I think we can certainly approach them with a minimum amount. Uh, I think we're approaching the end of today's mediation session. I would like to bring the parties back again because I do
Okay.
think we're close, and I think that everybody is acting under the same auspices of trying to achieve a resolution here.
Okay.
Mr. Biggs, Sean, thank you again for being here. I think we are very close. I would like to schedule another quick mediation session with both of you just to outline some other components of a resolution. I would encourage both of you to continue to be open to doing so. I think we've made good progress here today. I know it's been emotional, and I know this has been difficult for everybody involved. So I want to commend both of you for really being here in good faith and approaching this positively, trying to obtain a resolution and trying to move forward with everything. So thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Well, thank you so very much, Jonathan. Now, at this point, we are going to transition into our debrief. So let's have everyone back on.
And I know we're short on time, so I can I go first with my feedback or whatever?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought Jonathan did a really good job about, believing in the process. He's not a judge, not here to talk about the law. He had great compassion and a very soothing voice. And I thought he had a good note about keeping in perspective the results of the mediation. So all of those were good. I will have to admit I was taken aback by when he asked me my age. So I'm not sure if that's something that normally would have happened. And then all of the kind of demographic questions he asked me, like, were there other women in the organization? Has anything like this happened before? What was my salary and bonuses? But maybe you can talk about that a little bit. What was your thought behind it and
Sure.
that type of thing?
Mhm. Perfect. Thank you very much. Actually, let's go to Jonathan before you give your reflection. I think that is a good point. What was your thought process behind asking those questions?
Frankly, I'm used to more contentious mediations. There was actually so little animus and contentiousness here that I'm used to anticipating that, one side's going to say, well, this person's X years old, and so we're not paying until they're, Y years old. So it's part of trying to figure out, some of the pressure points and some of the points that if I need to use with the other side, one way, the other, to try and get some different understanding or different, you know, techniques to try and get them, through any hurdles that they have. One of the things that sometimes arise in mediations is, and I didn't have to do it here yet, is talking about, especially to the complainant, about what going to trial would look like, what it would feel like, the difficulties that you may experience, because this is a congenial process right now, but trial is anything but congenial.
Mm-hmm.
So, just trying to probe a little and, get to some numbers. That was my thought process in that.
Okay.
As well as one other thing, if this man has a history of doing this in his organization, that's certainly something else that if there's contention,
Mm-hmm.
I can use as a mediator to try and get them to understand the risks.
Mm. Okay.
Can I
Well,
go next?
I'm gonna come to you, Surveyor here in a second. Maybe let's continue with you, Jonathan, for a little bit. Now that we are in this segment, like, how do you feel the session went for you as a mediator?
Um, I think that I wasn't that aware of the time and the clock. So I was really trying to give the parties their ability to share and feel
Mm-hmm.
heard, and figure out, when Sean said 1.2 million, I immediately I thought, okay, there's no way that they're getting anywhere near that. Um, I'm going to have to see ultimately what the team wants to do. And when Sean told me that she didn't want me to say the number, I was like, okay, that's interesting and new. I've experienced where one side wants the other side to start, the other side wants the other side to start, and you kind of have to get them to go there. So I think that if I was a little bit more aware of the time, I could have been a little bit more effective. Not that this is an excuse, but I also have been getting texts about my mother who's in a acute nursing home facility, and she's been wandering off. So they wanted to talk to me. So I got distracted once or twice. So my apologies. But with that said, I think I could have been more targeted once I saw that both sides financially were, no pun intended, were playing ball a little bit more.
Um, and thank you very much for sharing. I know that there are other people that are really tight on time, so we're gonna maybe have those who are tight on time reflect first, and then we will get start. Then we will just proceed from there.
Can I?
Michelle.
Can
After
I
Michelle,
look?
Savannah, I'm sorry. After Michelle, we're gonna come to you, Savannah,
Yeah,
if that's
I'm
okay.
always tight on time. Okay, I have like 10 jobs. Jonathan, I think you've got a lot of good stuff. I'm gonna just give you high level. I wrote at one point, you are not an actuary. You're talking about sexual harassment. You got to stop doing the numbers thing, right? You got to take it down to the person level when you're talking about a very personal thing. This person was assaulted by a boss that she had a long-term relationship with. So you've got to come to that with that energy and that ethos, right? And when you do the breakout, that's your moment to do it. When you're talking to her,
Yeah.
stop quantifying her. Don't do that, right? And then when you're coming back at him, now, I love her because Savita's like kind of great, and I did my own clinic with her, and she really does stay in character. She was good, but she was trying to give you that guidance too, even in her character. She was trying to talk to you. So listen to the room. Take the temperature of it and listen to it. That's how you get to a mediation. You did the right thing by saying, we need to do this in two, not resolving everything today. You did all the wrong things by trying to quantify. Too hard, too hard, too lawyer. It was too lawyer.
Mm. Yeah.
And you're saying over and over again that you're not a lawyer, right? We're not moving through the legal system. I do it too. I've done it myself in a settlement where I just keep going at the number. Don't. That's how you lose the whole deal. Don't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. But I do have to go because I have like a whole bunch of things. And I do think you're nice. You're a nice man. I just you know, don't do that. And be especially thoughtful of the space that you inhabit as a white man when you're talking to people that are in the midst of either a sexual assault dispute, a family dispute. Be thoughtful about the space you hold. I have to do it too. I'm a Black woman, so I'm coming into a mediation space as just that. That may be a turn off to some party, or that may hit them the wrong way, but you have to be thoughtful of that space. And if you're not, and you're not careful and thoughtful, you will lose the mediation and the peace space that you can hold between two parties every time. Be thoughtful about the place that you hold.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye. I think Saveda wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah. So
Hi, guys. Thank you. These mediations are always fun. So I'm just taking a moment. Michelle can be very direct. So the first thing that struck me, Jonathan, in the mediation was this phrase that you used when you invited each of us to speak. Your first question was, "Tell me what happened." And the thing that struck me about it was that in our training, we were drilled in the what brings you here. What brings you here elicits a very different kind of response to what's happened. And I think that may be something that Michelle didn't hone in on specifics, but it was one of the aspects that right from the start set the tone for this is a fact-finding mission, i.e., it's a law thing. In the law, that's what we do. We elicit facts and we get into the nitty-gritty. And here, what what the goal might have been was to elicit interests. What are the interests, including the emotions? It was also a little in your opening statement. I guess people do this differently. So question mark. I was on the receiving end, so I can tell you what it felt like being on the receiving end on please keep your emotions under control. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We're not in a court of law. We're here in a more informal setting. And if there's any place in which we should be sharing our emotions, it should be this, because it's only once you release the emotions, I think of it as a pressure cooker valve, that you then get people to calm down and become reasonable. If you put a lid on the emotions, then you're going to get, I'm not surprised that you found yourself getting a very kind of mediation, because it seemed like you were trying to control it right from the start, and that's exactly what you got. Um, there's something you said that I would that again rubbed me the wrong way. You said in mediation, as I tell everyone, the hallmark of a good mediation is one side thinks they got too much and the other thinks they got too little. Really? So you're setting yourself up for people expecting unfairness and lack of parity. There's going to be a winner and loser. And the whole point of mediation is that two people are agreeing to come to some accommodation. Presumably, they're both going to have to compromise and compromise enough so that it's not too uncomfortable or adverse to their interests that they wouldn't prefer to go to trial. But that comment also kind of threw a monkey wrench in it. So I would try to get away, especially once you're in the mediation, from continually stepping back and telling the parties the beauty of mediation is this and the beauty of mediation is that. We're here, we've already bought into the mediation, so let's just keep the ball rolling. And I think I have one last thing. Now, this is something that came up now in our conversation that I wasn't aware of, but if it's true, I have a question about it. So apparently, according to Sean, or according to Alexis, you started asking about demographics because, as you told us, you wanted to find out if this has happened before. So if I've understood the mediation process correctly, it's not for the mediator to raise issues that have not been raised by parties. So if Sean hasn't said, "Oh, there's been a history of there's been a problem," and so I want Biggs to commit to never do this thing again or to go to some kind of training to stop this kind of behavior, I think it would have been inappropriate for you, A, just by asking those questions, you're planting a seed with the other side, which is unfair to this party to the mediation. And I don't think, but Francis can set me right on this. As I say, it's one of my question marks. It seemed like that was not an appropriate thing for a mediator to be delving into things. Again, it's something you might do in a court of law as a judge, but not as a mediator. I don't think you get to do that. And then lastly, it's been very interesting to observe you post mediation. You're a very affable human being and very warm and very relatable. And in the mediation, you were very buttoned down and almost nervous, and that comes across to the parties. We end up taking our cues from you in terms of the feel of the arbiter. So you're a delightful human being. Just be yourself. I mean, that would be the other thing I'd say. That's it. Other than that, great job. And actually, I think I disagree with Michelle. Despite these little comments that we've made, for whatever they're worth, you were actually successful in getting us close to a resolution. It's just that it felt very transactional. I think
Yeah.
that's the word I would use. It felt very transactional. And you yourself commented on how it just felt like there was no emotions and so on. And so that's it. Like how do we leave this mediation feeling goodwill towards the
Mhm.
other? And Michelle was right. I did try to throw you a bone by saying, for instance, that I hope we leave without hard feelings. See, for me, that's one of the reasons I want to be a mediator, and I've done the training is because I want people, unlike in a court of law, when they say, "Thank God I never have to deal with that human being again," I want them to walk away, even if they don't deal with each other, feeling like those really hard feelings have at least dissipated somewhat. That to me
Yeah.
is as important as getting the $300,000 a year or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
enough said.
I
Thank
think
No, I
you.
I
appreciate the comments.
I
Yeah.
want just something really quick. I think that might be hard in a sexual assault matter, though, and with the people feeling like, hey, this is how do you get past that? That's the only thing, the note that I'll make about what you said. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For me, I also felt it was a little bit of a challenge too, because normally I'd have a little bit more background on what's going on, and so, I'm kind of probing and digging. You know, I've always been trained and taught, whether I'm representing a party or whether I'm mediating, that, we really want to go with facts over emotion. Obviously, that's very difficult in a sexual harassment case. And, I've seen mediations go off the rails, like from the get-go, where somebody just vomits emotionally, and it sets everybody apart. So, but I think these are all very fair points in terms of knowing a little bit more after feeling parties out, and the comment about you one party gives too much, one party takes too little. I think that I can tailor that a little bit more to the situation. That's oftentimes something that we've said in the civil litigation, tort negligence type area, and everybody kind of knows that. So that's a point well taken.
I just want to chime in real quickly because I'm going out of the country, so I have a couple of appointments, but and it's not going to take long. I think you did a great opening statement, Jonathan. You acknowledged the parties. You kind of set the pace and the foundation by acknowledging and complimenting them for engaging in mediation. Now, I do have to agree that it felt like a lot of cross-examination as an attorney. I too am an attorney, but I've mediated more than I've litigated, right? So it's hard to kind of separate those roles. And I personally would encourage you to do more open-ended questions, and by asking, well, what is your perspective on this? One of the things, asking each party, because again, it's not a fact-finding forum. The other thing, it kind of struck me, and Cecil did, she was chiming in. You mentioned caucus a little too soon from my, from my style. I would have given both parties an opportunity to discuss their perspective. And from what I remember, I kind of wrote it down. It's like, why did he do a caucus so soon? Sexual harassment claims, I do them all the time. They're very uncomfortable. And I would agree with everyone that squashing the emotions or telling them to take the emotions down. I mean, emotions are at the heart of a sexual harassment claim. So I felt like you were a little uncomfortable with that. And I was like, maybe he does more business mediations. I'm not sure because you do have to read the room. And the one thing I would encourage, a great mediator, people like them, right? People like a mediator. You set the tone, you set the energy. If people like you, they're more willing to negotiate and start the discussion. So always bring humor into it, bring your personality into it. And it's the more you do, the better you're going to get at it. I still kind of stumble, and they worked together for 18 years, right? And she kept saying, "I love what was this Cecil? I love Cecil." Or I'm sorry, I'm horrible at names. And,
Sean,
and
yeah.
so I would have pulled out the conciliatory language right at the beginning, and you didn't summarize, right? You didn't summarize the perspectives of the party. So I would have done that. And it could have just been your nerves.
Yeah.
When I did the mock mediation, I was totally nervous, and I didn't summarize, but summarizing and pulling out conciliatory language and really focusing on what the impact is, their values, what it is they want to see as a resolution. So other than that, I think you did great. It's just
Thank you.
bring your person out. And I'm
Yeah.
sure this, because it's mock, it's not really, if you were in a real life situation without, the other stuff with your mom, and I'm sorry to hear about that, I'm sure you'd been a lot more relaxed because, yeah, but you did great.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thank
It's
you.
Diane Donnelly. We're almost done. I think one of the things that might have been useful is you were originally going to have a second discussion with Cecil right in the beginning, and then you switched a separate discussion. Then you switched to having Sean. So Cecil never got a chance to give her opening statement, which I think both sides need an opening statement always. So that's my first thought. I thought you basically did a great job. I do think win-win is what I think mediation is, not one wins and one loses. And I think the other comment somebody made about what brings you here is a wonderful way to open a discussion. I do think over here, hold on, I got tons of notes. Sometimes you actually interjected what a mediator suggesting payoffs stop instead, and she mentioned a set off, and then you tried to clarify a set off, but it basically set that up so that she then said, "Oh no, I don't want to do a set off." I think if you had asked,
Yeah.
"What do you mean by that?" That would have been better than saying she that you were explaining what you thought a set off meant, and she needed to explain what she thought a set off meant. And there was another point when she said have a stop and a non-compete clause, and then you said, "I think that's fair and reasonable." Probably not a good idea to say to Cecil that you thought it was fair and reasonable to have a non-compete clause, but just to let that go. Generally, I thought you did a great job. I can imagine myself in this situation, and then it would be nerve-wracking, and with your mother on top of that, it's amazing how well you did. I think you're an affable fellow. I did think you were fairly nervous, but then sometimes being on the dock like this, it is
Yeah.
nerve-wracking. I do think having each side say what they think this is all about in the beginning is critical. And Cecil actually sort of interrupted your flow
Yeah.
by going back to that. So I think that's an important comment. I think those are my biggest comments. So
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Towards the end, I was kind of that's what I was conscious of the time when I kept saying
right.
minutes, and I was trying to kind of like, okay, get to it, get a little bit more
And
clarity.
I think at the very end, actually, Sean was against it, was not going to resolve it. If I find a job, 150,000 is not enough. So she was really, perhaps because you were being quite transactional, but I appreciate your desire to do that. She was basically all of a sudden opting out of going along with this. So you definitely needed another session, but I'm not sure how well it would have worked out.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this.
Of course. Thank you. Dylan?
Hey, Jonathan. I'm going to start by saying well done. As you already mentioned, this is not an easy mediation, and there are a lot of things about the approach that you took that I did appreciate, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time harping on what other people have said, because I do think there are some things that I saw you do really well. I saw you do the reality checking. You did focus on problem solving in a way that I thought was very good, right? You were working with the parties, and you were keeping in mind what the purpose of mediation in terms of trying to get to eventual resolutions were, which I think is great. I also am going to echo a lot of what others have already said. I think definitely on the emotions side of thing, it was actually kind of almost affirming to hear you say I'm used to more contentious mediations, because I could see it in the way you started this mediation. You came in almost expecting parties to be more contentious than they were, and I think you set that expectation for yourself pretty early on. And I think it's what ended up happening in your delivery was you came off as very guarded. You kind of told them we need to keep this process emotionless, and we need to focus on the facts, and we need to make sure. And while I totally understand why you have that response, I think what it ended up doing with the parties was kind of put them as in this sort of discovery mindset. We've already talked a little bit about the lawyer mindset versus the mediator mindset. And I think by setting that tone, you sort of set it up as this is a discovery. We're going to only focus on the facts, and we're only going to focus on the problem solving, and there will be no kind of deep emotional resolution here. It's about finding the solution to the problem. And so I would just say, as you go in, to not necessarily be immediately concerned about the potential for conflict. It's okay if parties do get a little emotional or contentious. What I usually try and set as a boundary is it is okay sometimes to get a little emotional. We understand this is difficult. What we don't want is for this to be used in a way to abuse the other person, or to really kind of be used as a way to take over this process. So I may, as a mediator, need to step in to kind of manage that delivery and how that goes. I otherwise thought you did a really, really great job on that. I would echo what I'm already getting names. What Alexis already said about the age question. I saw where you were trying to go. I would just be very careful to explain sometimes where you're going with parties, especially if you are going to do a discovery style question, because I think it threw Alexis off because there was no explanation of, okay, here's where we're going. So just to be careful that if it is totally normal as a mediator, you may realize certain things that you want to ask questions about, but it can help to walk the parties through the process so that they're not taken aback. There is something you did that I was quite interested by. You did start to ask questions about other women, and do you think this has happened? But you asked that to Alexis rather than necessarily kind of having a more open discussion with Cecil. And I wrote down as a question mark for myself whether or not you were looking for pressure points, because it did feel a little bit like you were looking for, like a judge trying to kind of understand where is the kind of deeper conversation here. And I would be really careful about that, because that could have also backfired with Alexis turning around and going, oh my God, do you think other people have had this happen? Do I need to, be thinking about maybe a larger lawsuit? Like, is this, I would just be very careful in the way you bring that up. And I think what Karen mentioned about open-ended questions is a good way to also kind of just avoid anything that makes it sound to a party like you're suggesting something.
Sure.
Because as you know, parties can latch on to certain ideas or certain concepts, and we want to be really careful about that. You said at one point, and I don't think this worked against you, but I just took a note of it. You mentioned, I assume you also want confidentiality, right? You kind of brought up to Alexis an additional point, which is totally understandable. It would make sense that she eventually would get there on her own, but I would just be very careful as a mediator, obviously, of suggesting anything additional or any additional tangent. It is for the parties to kind of move this process forward, and as the mediator, you do want to be a little careful. I think because of those things, as this progressed, it turned into a shuttle negotiation, a little bit more over a mediation. Because at some point, I was really getting the sense of like, you are going back and forth, discussing numbers, questions, and that works if this is a negotiation. It makes it a lot harder in mediation. And the moment that really stood out for me is, I think you said to Alexis, I want you to know that Cecil has told me that he really values you in this company. And what was really interesting about that is, rather than bringing the parties back together and giving them a chance to kind of share a little bit more about where they're at.
Your audio is disappearing somehow.
Whoops. Can you guys hear me?
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, if it happens again, please let me know. So I don't know where you lost me. Apologies. But at some point you mentioned Cecil really values you in this company. And what was really interesting to me is that could have been an opportunity for more sharing between the two parties, or to kind of reaffirm to both parties to have a chance to explore the more emotional side of thing. And I think you intentionally wanted to avoid that to focus on the problem solving. Just be cautious of that, because that could have been a really good moment to bring the parties back together. And I think it's about reading the room. You know, I completely agree that it may be that you try and do that and you realize that's actually not a great idea. Parties are not there yet. But checking in with parties is a very good way of doing it. And I think you missed certain opportunities to check in with parties and say, you know, do we want to discuss this in a group again? So I would just be careful, because I think this ended up feeling a lot more like a shuttle negotiation at the end, because you were very focused on some of the other things. Other than that, honestly, I thought your professionalism was great. I agree. You're an incredibly affable guy. You do a very good job at managing the process and helping parties to kind of reflect through things. I can see the more evaluative style of mediation is something you're a little bit more used to, and I think that's totally fine. I thought you did a good job at communicating pretty clearly, and doing a good job of really working with parties to think about, where are we going? I would just say, don't be afraid of the emotional aspect, and take advantage of moving around a little. I think you had everything there. You just came in so prepared for, like, this is going to be contentious and there's going to be a lot of emotions, and like, it's best if I split them up quick and early. And I think that just ended up in both parties feeling like, okay, this becomes steroids.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. No, I think you're right. I think that, I was on high alert about this being a very contentious and emotional situation. Ultimately I was, if we would have gotten to a resolution, my plan was to then let the parties have, like a final statement, and have Cecil be able to say, look, I value you, I'm sorry. And whether Sean takes it or not, fantastic. It is what it is. But yeah, I was focused on, I really was focused on trying to get a resolution in as short a time as possible, given the setting. And I did totally take emotion out of it, because I had my own preconceptions coming in, which, that these are good points.
I did want to add real quick, just to contradict something you said earlier. I actually thought you were quite good with timekeeping. I actually didn't at any point feel like you were rushing too much with anything. I think, again, part of that has to do with how you were managing the process. And I know that especially in these kind of mediations, especially in a mock mediation, it can be a little difficult when you don't have any of that information coming in. But as far as timing went, I actually thought you did a pretty good job at allowing parties to take the time that they wanted to take to talk about certain things.
Your video, oral. You're
Are you losing me again?
A little bit, but
Sorry. Anyway, my comment was very brief on that amount, as I wouldn't kick yourself too hard about the
yeah.
timing. I thought it
Okay.
was not terrible by any means.
Thank you.
The other thing I immediately thought about the age 65, but that would have been the actual amount would be towards further towards the end. I do think her age, people have criticized you for that, but it was in my mind, but I was sort of waiting. I was waiting till later to get to that. And I think that would have been a better approach
Hmm.
to get to have that be very close to the end when you're trying to reach a final number. And but Cecil and uh,
Sean.
Sean would have been thinking about that themselves towards the very end of the mediation, and it came early. I
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
was really my only concern about it. It was too early.
Yeah. I was just trying to get parameters in
Yes,
terms of trying to get some type of range to
yes.
know whether or not on a financial side of things, it was a possibility. But, I guess depending on the situation, the people involved, yeah, that fair points.
Well, sexual harassment, of course, is very difficult. I was thinking to myself because I dealt with a situation like this in my lifetime and in a mediation, and the sexual harassment, Cecil will always want, in my opinion, will always want to have it be affable. But the victim is rarely going to want it to be affable
Yep.
afterwards. And so that Cecil's effort to do that is not likely to be something that the victim will be very happy with. It'll be
Yeah.
unusual in my view.
Yeah.
I love the conversation. We are 14 minutes late, so I wanna say you are not under any obligation to continue being here, but I don't want to cut this conversation short. So I just wanted to say that. That being said, Saveda, your hand is up.
Just a very quick comment as you were talking, I was struck by, because I too was a litigator for 20 years, and I was struck by the very different energy and approach one brings, and the approach of pre-planning. So as a litigator, you prepare and you game out all the possible ways this could go and the possible ways people are going to show up and what you're going to do to counter. And it's tortuous and it's it's stressful, and I'm so glad it's behind me. The difference in mediation, and one of the what brings magic to mediation, is that I think if you're just fully present, assume nothing, plan nothing, show up and be fully present, that then automatically enable, you don't have to then read the room. It's something that automatically happens. You are connected to these souls, these human beings around you, and you find your way, and the things to say just pop into your head. So I think maybe that presence, just like being in the now without any pre-planning, would help you, and it's less stressful, it's less work, and the results I think are magical, and the parties go away feeling it too. So
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen?
I love these conversations, and I'm just, my brain is just spinning. Um, Reading the room, and I think you're absolutely right, Cecil. But I was trained to also look at body language, right? Because that's a language
Yeah.
in and of itself, and it's a very powerful language. So if you see one party, like for example, when Cecil, you mentioned caucus pretty early and didn't give Cecil an opportunity, look at her expression, right? Like she felt, hey, it could be perceived that you were somewhat biased. Now, with that said, I just had an idea because the one thing that I believe that you're a brilliant litigator, Jonathan, and I may contact you because I'm in the middle of I'm litigating right now for myself. I'm representing myself against my condo, and I always want to start off with try to get it resolved at the lowest level. But sometimes things aren't, you can't
Yeah.
mediate them. With
Yeah.
that said, the one thing I thought, I've met a lot of mediators who are afraid of conflict, believe it or not, or they are uncomfortable with conflict and
Hmm.
they don't look at, and I've never been uncomfortable with conflict. As a middle child, I was always sort of the natural mediator, but it would be great training for the mediators, right? To look at different conflict styles, really delve into how we resolve conflict, because conflict happens every day, right? Even when
Yeah.
we're talking to our spouses about what we're going to eat, you know. And Dylan, I think you would be great at that because of your the type of work you do. It's almost like conflict transformation, and that's what um, my goal is always in even the most contentious mediations, have the parties come out feeling better and have this particular. Now, sometimes it's not always going to be kumbaya, but I think of it as forward looking. We're going to talk about what brought you here, but the goal is tomorrow, this is behind you and how you can move forward in a more productive manner. And but these conversations, I learn so much every time I do one of these. So thank you all for having this.
I can
Thank you. I
only
appreciate those points. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only echo that. And to be fair, I mean, just to reflect what Karen said, my only real recommendation to you, Jonathan, is taking as much time as you can to sit in conflict and to be comfortable sitting in conflict. Because I think what Karen says is exactly that. And it's learning. It is very hard to be comfortable with conflict. Even though I'm comfortable sitting in conflict, I still find conflict uncomfortable. I've come to just learn about how to manage that balance. But I think this is a lot of leaders. It's a really good way to build recognizing as well when we're getting to that tipping point, right? Especially with emotions, of when there are healthy moments to release emotions. So I do a lot of mental health and psychosocial support work, and sometimes it is really necessary to kind of allow people to talk through their emotions, sometimes in front of someone else, in order for them to be able to get to resolution. It's learning to manage that
Yeah.
comfort with conflict and uncertainty that can be really difficult. And the more you sit in conflict, the more that is. And if that is, even just watching videos of conflict can sometimes be really helpful, and just feeling how you are feeling, recognizing your response to that, and kind of diving deeper into it can be really interesting. I can also recommend, there are some psychological first aid courses that also kind of talk about this same concept about how do you deal with people who are going through very intense emotions, and saying it's okay that you're going through these emotions and it's okay to share these. When is it that we're getting to the point that this is actually being used as a weapon against someone versus an actual moment for healing? So that really would be my only recommendation to you, to fully echo Karen.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add. I feel like this has been truly a wonderful discussion, and anything that I say might spoil, all the good things that has been shared. In conclusion, the only one thing that I will say is that whereas in court you want to focus on facts, the reason why that is important is because somebody else is making the decision for the parties. In the mediation, it becomes tricky because parties are making the decisions on their own. And parties cannot make decisions on their own without the feeling of fairness. And you can only get to that feeling of fairness if parties' emotions are truly acknowledged and validated. I really do thank you so very much for being here. I hope to see you all again, and let's keep the discussion going.